Hello, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, sponsored by Sling TV. I'm Kirien Sprecher, and with Mike Bonner on family vacation this week, I'll be taking over hosting duties while fantasy basketball guru Adam King steps in as our analyst, our usual Thursday edition on a Wednesday here before the NBA gets back into action. Adam, news is finally starting to pick up again after a couple of, dead days, not even quiet days, just completely dead. Nobody in the NBA sphere was working Monday and Tuesday. But things started to pick up today. Actually started to pick up last night a little bit. But before we get into news and notes, I just want to hear your thoughts on the All-Star break. Did you enjoy the new format of the actual All-Star game? Is there any saving the dunk contest? And is the three-point contest still worth watching?
I watched some of it. I'd never prioritize it. I thought the three-point comp was fine. It is what it is. I don't think you need to change it too much. It did start. It felt like it started very early this year. It was I was lucky that I happened to be just flicking and watching TV and sort of stumbled across it more than actively sort of seeked it out or sought it. I don't know what the word is, but anyway, it was fine. Dunk comp was not. Is there any saving it? I don't know. I mean, I thought Mac McClung was pretty good the last couple of years, and he obviously wasn't there this year. The Jackson Hayes dunk was pretty lame. I know it was probably a bit of a stuff up on his part, but it wasn't a good look. Yeah, look, I don't think they ever get rid of the dunk comp because it has a lot of history, a lot of nostalgia for people. Short of getting sort of top-line players back in to do the dunk comp, even if that was to happen, I'm not sure it would fix it because I just don't know what else they can do. You could go onto Instagram and see Jordan Kilganon and those guys doing better dunks and more creative dunks. So do you get those sort of guys to come in and make an appearance? I guess that sort of defeats the purpose. They're not NBA players, so I'm not sure what they do there. I do like the Rising Stars game. I thought it was pretty good. It's a lot of young kids that want to get some national exposure and don't play a ton of minutes in the NBA. So I like that format. And I thought the NBA game or the NBA All-Star game itself was at least competitive. That looked like the players were trying. Wemby was pretty annoyed that they didn't win a game. I thought the shorter format was good. I think you're more likely to get 80% out of a player for 15 minutes than you are for 2 hours or however long the All-Star game usually goes for. So I didn't mind it, but the question is what happens next year? Because we saw this a few years ago when they changed the format to you had to reach a certain amount of points. Like they did a change. I can't remember exactly.
It was like the year to honor Kobe or whatever. They had to get to 24 points or something.
Yeah,
and they kind of did that a couple of years in a row.
Yeah, and the first year they did that, it was quite good. It was competitive, but then it faded almost instantly. The next year was terrible. So the question will be, do they stick with this, which I think they will, and what's the competitiveness look like next year? And I do think the one-on-one tournament is gaining some traction, whether it actually happens. But I said this to Thunder Dan on my show yesterday. They'll need to get the right players in that sort of format because you're not going to get Nikola Jokic. There is absolutely, you couldn't pay him enough money to do something like that. Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, those guys, they would do it, I think. Like it needs to be ego driven, which is it's not an issue in the NBA. A lot of players have an ego, but certain players would really want to get on that stage and prove that they're the best. So I think that could be interesting if it ever takes off.
Yeah, I love that idea. I've been campaigning for that for a while. It would be. I even saw like the 2v2 that they said maybe that could be a possibility. Getting the Spencers, getting some brother matchups in there, that would be really fun. As for the dunk contest, I I'm a Bulls fan. I'm an MJ fan. LeBron James is, arguably or unarguably at worst the second best player of all time, right? But will forever say that he ruined the dunk contest. If he would have done the dunk contest, he would have set the stage for all of this next generation of guys to be in the dunk contest. That seems like a little bit harsh, but that's just a reality. And like you said, even if we bring in those YouTubers, the social media guys, that kind of respects the NBA All-Star game. But we're already doing that. The guy who won the dunk contest hardly played in the NBA this season, and the guy who won the 3-point contest, Damian Lillard, is an NBA legend. He hasn't played a single game this year. So it's perfect, NBA. Today's NBA to have those winners not even really be NBA stars in this current season. But yeah, it was a step in the right direction. I think the old heads got a little tired in that final game, and the USA teams were definitely just like, we can't let the world, dominate here. And maybe Jokic, maybe Doncic come back next season, or maybe they're healthier next season, and the world has a little more firepower. Even throw Giannis in there too. All in all, a step in the right direction with the All-Star game, I think. Like I said at the top, news really started picking up today. It started with Kyrie Irving being ruled out for the rest of the season. This was kind of inevitable, in my opinion, given Dallas's spot in the rankings here. Is there anything fantasy worthy that we have to glean from this, Adam?
No, look, I think as soon as they moved off of Anthony Davis, it was sort of an indication that they were just looking to next season. So nothing you need to do other than if you were stashing Kyrie Irving, you can go ahead and drop him and fill your IR spot with someone that might actually come back.
Yep, totally agree. I think Max Christie, is going to I think he would have maintained value anyways, but Tyus Jones, Brandon Williams, I'm staying away from those guys as of right now, or just like tempering my expectations for those guys. And I think Max Christie has some staying power in Dallas. The other big news was Franz Wagner. He was sidelined for a couple of weeks. He tried to come back for that game in Berlin. Then he was sidelined again. He came off the bench. His first 2 appearances off the bench in his pro career, Adam, seemed okay. Thought maybe he was going to be full go after the All-Star break, but the Magic said today he's going to be out for at least 3 weeks. What are we doing here in fantasy with Franz out for at least 3 weeks? If your fantasy playoffs start in March, he's a drop candidate, right?
I think so, yeah. I think given just the fact that this injury, yes, he could potentially be back in 3 weeks, but he's almost certainly not playing back-to-backs. He's not playing 35 minutes a night. So we're looking at a month here, minimum, I think, until he is back to 100%. And that's if he gets back to 100%. And yeah, I mean, we're only, 9-10 days away from the start of March. So I think if you've got him in your IR spot and your playoffs start in the next 1 to 2 weeks, you probably have to move on. In terms of what we do with Orlando players, not much. I mean, we've seen this all season. They've had someone out. Anthony Black maintains value. Banchero will do a lot. It is what it is, kind of thing. So there's no big changes here in fantasy value, I don't think.
Yeah, Franz has played in only 4 games since December 9th. So it's pretty much, what Orlando has been doing over the last 3 months. Is going to continue because Franz just hasn't been available at all, like you said. The other big news today was Darius Garland is going to be week to week. Also thrown out, sidelined indefinitely, a lot of different timetables going. Garland has been dealing with these toe injuries, I think to his right and left toe throughout the season. Just hasn't gotten right yet. Do you, let's just, before we get into the fantasy side of things, do you think that the Clippers can stay relevant, stay in the play-in push without Darius Garland, with Benedict Mathurin back, in town now? Does he add enough push? Are the Clippers going to stay in the standings, or stay in their spot in the standings with Darius Garland out?
It's going to be hard. A lot is going to rest on Kawhi Leonard, which obviously he is a very good player, but he's also not a picture of health, generally speaking. He's been pretty healthy this season. So, look, I think there's a chance. I'm just pulling up the standings now. So they're currently in the 10th seed, but they do have quite a buffer. It drops back to the Grizzlies then, who are sort of 6 wins behind, or 6 games, whatever. So, yeah, look, I think they're probably safe enough that they will stay in that play-in picture. I don't see them pushing into the playoffs because there's teams ahead of them that are far more healthy. So I think there'll be a play-in team. That's probably best case scenario. Worst case would be dropping back behind the Grizzlies, but I don't think the Grizzlies will allow that. So, yeah, I think they just stick where they are, and we continue to roll with the players that we have been. I mean, Garland hasn't been on the team, so we don't need to make any adjustments here.
Yeah, all of the teams behind the Clippers, the Grizzlies, the Mavs, the Jazz. Well, the Pelicans want to win games, but they just can't win games.
Yeah,
and the Kings. The rest of the teams, are actively trying to lose games. So yeah, I think their spot in the plan is safe. And then maybe if Darius comes back, maybe they can get hot and make a run. Kawhi Leonard looks fantastic. Speaking of the All-Star game, it was a shame that he wasn't part of the initial All-Star group, and he had to be a throw-in. I'm not sure if that has to do with the aspiration stuff, but his 31-point quarter, that was pretty spectacular, and he's been doing that in real games too. So I think Kawhi can lead this team until Garland gets back. So last night, news started to slowly trickle in. We heard that Steph and Kristaps Porzingis were back at practice. I think we're both pumping our brakes on Porzingis very heavily. We're not really sure what he's going to look like. I keep saying that he's a better fit in Golden State if you're playing 2K than in real life. We'll see how that works. But obviously, managers that have Steph Curry should be super excited for that return to practice update. He should be full go coming out of the break. And then Zubac, we kind of knew this already, but Zubac is his Indiana debut is going to be pushed back. Who knows if he even suits up this season. Obi Toppin is also not close to a return for Indiana. And then news that just dropped, Jonathan Kuminga is also going to be out for another week. So another guy that's, I've gotten questions about in fantasy, but we can probably forget that, especially if he's going to remain out here. The last piece of news that I wanted to touch on before we get into some silly season winners and what fantasy managers should do moving forward. Did you see Kevin Durant acknowledge the burner accusations, Adam?
I did not know.
So Houston had a practice today. He was asked. He completely brushed it off. He said, I'm not going to talk about this. This is I'm not going to worry about Twitter nonsense. We're going to focus on our team. He never denied it. Basically that makes it seem like that was those were his accounts, and he was talking trash about his teammates. Do you think this is going to affect Houston moving forward at all, or do you think Durant's a veteran? They got plenty of veterans on this team. How do you think Houston is going to how are they going to play coming out of this break after their star player kind of made the headlines for all the wrong reasons?
I think they'll be okay. I mean, Kevin Durant is no stranger when it comes to headlines, so this is nothing new for him. The Rockets haven't been particularly good anyway, so I think that they will be looking to get back on track here. Where are they in the standings? Third, fourth? They're fourth currently. But there is a bit of a logjam there. So unlike the Clippers, who are sort of not in no man's land, but the Rockets are 2 wins behind the Nuggets, 1 or sort of half a game ahead of the Lakers, a game ahead of the Wolves. And then the Suns are nipping at their heels there in the 7th spot. So Houston want to continue to win. They probably want to get that top 4 finish so they can get a home playoff series. So I think they'll be okay. I do think that they are missing Fred VanVleet quite a bit now. They don't have that go-to point guard kind of vet. They've got Durant, who's a veteran, but not having VanVleet running things there, I think is impacting them a little bit. And I think the Steven Adams loss is probably quite underrated. I think losing him has made a huge difference just to their defensive presence and their ability to rebound and that sort of thing.
No doubt about that at all. Obviously, their calling card to start the season was that it didn't matter that they missed shots because they were just going to get 70% of the offensive rebounds and score eventually. And Steven Adams played a huge part in that. The Fred VanVleet news, before the season started that he was going to be out for the entire campaign. My initial reaction to that was they just need to throw Reed Shepherd into the fire. Because they're going to need a true point guard. Eamon Thompson, Sengun, they can run point at times, but they don't have the floor spacing ability to really be a point guard in the playoffs, be a lead point guard in the playoffs. You can only go to him on occasion. So my understanding was, hey, if you want Reed Shepherd to be that guy in the playoffs, you're going to have to live through his mistakes during the regular season. They've had complete kid gloves on Reed Shepherd all year. He has a good game. They give him a little bit of a runway. As soon as he starts to struggle, he's out of there. Without a true point guard, it's hard for me to put the Rockets on that same tier as, OKC, the Spurs, and Denver, especially when Denver's healthy. Aaron Gordon, not really sure when he's going to be back, but for the most part, as long as Jokic is healthy, Denver should be in that top tier. So, yeah, the Rockets are slipping right now, and they definitely, like you said, they want to be one of those top 4 seeds heading into the Western Conference. Otherwise there's going to be some changes this offseason in Houston. All right, before we get into some silly season winners, I got a quick ad read here from Sling. Tired of paying for live TV you don't watch? With Sling, you can get live sports news and entertainment you want, only when you want it. Get your hands on a Sling 1-day, 3-day, or 7-day pass starting at just $4.99. Get over 30 of your favorite channels for the best price and stop overpaying for full-time live TV plans. Sling has a pass for any occasion. Big game tonight. Grab a 1-day pass for just $4.99. Want a full week of live TV for one low price? Get a 7-day Sling pass. And for all those weekend watchers out there, you can enjoy live sports, news, and entertainment with a 3-day Sling pass. Only Sling lets you watch when you want, so you only pay for what you watch. Watch live TV on your terms, starting at just $4.99. Sling lets you do that. Use our link in the description below to sign up for Sling today. All right, Adam, silly season winners. It is about that time of the year. Fantasy playoffs are right around the corner. A third of the teams are actively tanking, and so there's going to be some random names that pop up that can help you win your fantasy season. We've talked at length about a couple of these guys already. Kyle Filipowski, Jarace Walker, Tristan Vukcevic. These guys have kind of been in the news before the All-Star break. Obviously, Vukcevic has this runway here with Alex Sarr being injured. Jarace Walker has an opportunity, in the front court with Zubac not ready yet, and he also has an opportunity on the wings with Benedict Mathurin getting traded to the Clippers. And then Kyle Filipowski, we never know who's going to be available on any given night, but Kyle Filipowski is one of those rare guys that is available every single night for the Utah Jazz. So just, if you had to rank these 3 guys, Adam, if fantasy managers, are all 3 of these guys are available on their waiver wires, but they only have one roster spot, how are you ranking Filipowski, Jarace Walker, and Tristan Vukcevic?
I think I would go. It probably depends if you're looking at upside or role. Like there's sort of different plateaus and caveats there. But I would probably go Jarace Walker first. I just think he's 30 minutes a night every night. No questions. The injury to Johnny Furphy helps. So I'd probably go him first just because I'm pretty certain that he is going to have a starter level role rest of season. I think I'd go Filipowski next because we've seen as you said, he's available every night. He's generally playing decent minutes. He's had some pretty disappointing games, but I think with the Jazz getting fined for the whole sort of resting players in the final quarter, that sort of thing, they're going to have to find a different path here to tanking, and I think that is just not playing Larry Markkinen and not playing so. I think this will now be a case where Filipowski probably within a week or two is playing 28 minutes plus nightly. So I'd have him second, and then I'd have Vukcevic third because I'm not sure Alex Sarr is done for the season. I do think he's going to miss more than the 2-week timeline that he was given initially, but he could come back at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play again, but I think he will. So Vukcevic for the next week to 2 weeks has a really good path or runway to minutes, but I'm not sure that it's rest of season.
Yep, that's totally fair. I'm hesitant on Sarr. Obviously, Anthony Davis is probably not going to play again this season. Trae Young still hasn't been cleared for contact. He may not play again this season. But Alex Sarr is one of those guys. I don't know. I think his game limits are. I think he's still in line to be eligible for awards so far. 1, 2, 3. He might be getting close here soon. So yeah, I don't know if he plays the entire season. But if he's not eligible for those awards, even when he's healthy again, they're probably going to sit him down. He's had a really good breakout sophomore campaign. So I feel like you'd like to finish that strong, but there's no real incentive. And I totally agree with you about Utah. They're just going to completely sit guys. If they're going to get dinged, they're like, okay, why? We were trying to do, trying to get everybody involved and make everybody happy by doing this, and now we're just not going to play them at all. And there's always some injury that they can come up with and mark it down. So we got a couple more names here on this list. Maybe some longer shots that are definitely available, maybe even available in some of your deeper leagues. So with in Sacramento, they didn't make as many trades as we thought they were going to. They were almost kind of buyers, bringing in DeAndre Hunter. Zach LaVine is out for the season. Is this, Nick Clifford's probably rostered in a lot of leagues. So who are you looking for? Who are you looking at in Sacramento that could step up and help you win your fantasy basketball season?
Yeah, I think Nick Clifford's the obvious one, but like you said, probably rostered in most competitive leagues or knowledgeable leagues. So leagues that have managers who are sort of have their finger on the pulse will know that Nick Clifford is someone that has to be rostered. So if he's available, absolutely Nick Clifford is a priority. And I think the same goes for Dylan Cardwell. Should probably be rostered everywhere, given what he's been doing. Even with the question marks regarding Sabonis, I think Cardwell has shown enough, even when Sabonis has been healthy, to be rostered. So the other guy is Devin Carter, who I think I talked about him, it's probably 2 months ago, and I said if the Kings do what they're meant to do here and just give up, Devin Carter is someone they want to get a look at because they've had him on the roster now for a couple of years. I think he can add a lot to this team in terms of his defensive presence. With Zach LaVine, I was sort of umming and ahhing on Carter. I thought, okay, he's starting to get minutes here, but what happens when LaVine comes back? LaVine's done for the season now, so I think that this just opens up a role for Devin Carter as well. And he's played, 27, 30, and 30 minutes in the last 3 games. He's scoring. He gets some assists. The steals haven't really been there, but he's actually a pretty good defender. So I think he could sort of average 1.2, 1.3 steals rest of season with 5 assists and sort of 15 points. So he's not going to be this league winner, I don't think, but certainly should be rostered everywhere at the moment.
Absolutely. You said the last 3 games, even going back the last 5 games, 15 points, 4.5 boards, 4 assists, 1.5 stocks. So like you said, a steal in 4 of those 5 games, but he's also had 3 blocks in those 5 games. So definitely has some defensive chops. This is a 2nd-year player who was a lottery pick. Like you said, if the Kings do what they're supposed to do, this kid should be getting a lot of run down the stretch. A lot of teams would give up a lot of players to get a lottery pick in this upcoming draft, right? So I think Devin Carter is definitely worth a speculative ad. You saw the production spike before the All-Star break. This Kings team shouldn't be competitive. And yeah, so I like the Devin Carter move. Like you said, maybe not a league winner, but definitely a guy that can fill in some gaps and give you steady production down the stretch. So another team like that we mentioned before with, Alex Sarr and Tristan Vukcevic, Anthony Davis not playing, Trae Young not playing. Is there anybody in Washington that you have your eyes on that could be a silly season winner?
No, look, I mean, it's hard to know what the Wizards are going to do because I think we've seen them do a little bit of the Utah play here where they don't play guys in the final sort of quarter and a half. And Champagny is one of those. So he was someone I was pretty high on. I thought, yeah, he's going to have a role here. But we've already seen them not play him when he's almost playing too well. So when he gets off to a good start, he just doesn't play the fourth quarter. So I still think he is probably a hold, but I think that ceiling of him being a 32-minute a night player is a bit of a pipe dream at the moment. Look, I guess if Trey Johnson was dropped when he was injured, he'd be someone you could target. He before the injury, he was actually consistently playing 30 minutes a night. So if that sticks, and he's going to play most games moving forward, I don't think this is a situation where they're going to worry about him leading them to too many victories. That's not going to happen. So whether he's on the court or not, they're going to continue to lose. So I think Trey Johnson and Will Riley, who I think we were sort of a little bit interested in him, and he hasn't played very well in the last couple of weeks. But if you're just looking for a guy that's going to play a lot of minutes and hope for the best, then I think Will Riley should at least still be on the radar for people.
All right. Totally agree. I think we should be looking at all of these tanking teams. So the next tanking team, Kyrie is done for the season. We talked about Tyus Jones, Brandon Williams, probably staying away from those. Maybe Max Christie. Is there anybody else in Dallas that you're interested in targeting during silly season?
Yeah, I was having a look at the Dallas roster and sort of trying to pinpoint, and this was before the Kyrie news. Not that really, I never really expected him to come back anyway. And I do, so I guess looping back around to what the Dallas rotation is going to look like here, I think there's a chance Cooper Flagg, once he hits that 65 games, is done. I'm not sure they're going to play him rest of season. He's at 49 games now, so he needs 16 more games to get to the 65-game threshold. That could potentially be a month. So I'm not saying he's going to be shut down anytime soon, but if you have Flagg, I don't mind trying to move off him at some point in the next few weeks, because I think there could be some rest or a bit of injury management. And he has had some injuries. He's had some ankle stuff going on. So the seed is there for him to miss some games later in the season. So one name, I thought Tyus Jones possibly, and I guess if Flagg is ruled out, like if we get to a point and he's not there for a week or something, maybe Tyus Jones, maybe Brandon Williams, these guys, because someone's going to have to play that point guard role, which Cooper Flagg is sort of playing it at the moment. We don't actually know who their point guard is, but AJ Johnson is someone that's sort of intriguing. He's pretty young. He's only 21. I think he was picked in last year's draft. I don't think he wasn't this year. I'm pretty sure he was a 2024.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen a lot of him this season, but we had a couple of games there earlier in the month where he played minutes in the mid-20s, and he had 17 points, a rebound, 4 assists, a steal. Then he had 14, 4 and 4 with a steal, hit a couple of threes. He might be someone that they just want to get a look at some point. You talked about Max Christie. He's probably rostered everywhere anyway. So I think AJ Johnson, don't go and grab him now, but it's definitely someone I'd be keeping an eye on as we push through into March and then definitely into April. That if he's available, I could see him stepping into a 28-minute role on a nightly basis for maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep, I totally condone, trying to move off of Flagg. I think that's a very real possibility, at least, taking his workload very seriously moving forward. The AJ Johnson thing, I feel like, would also need to tie into Najee Marshall and PJ Washington. Daniel had a question in the chat about Najee Marshall. If you're high on, I don't want to put words in your mouth. If you're monitoring AJ Johnson closely, are you also worried about potentially Najee Marshall and PJ Washington's workload dwindling down the stretch, given they're veterans on a not very good team?
PJ, yes. I think there's definitely a chance PJ misses time because, again, he's had injuries this season. He's had various, I think a concussion was his most recent maybe, or he's definitely missed time. So I think they know who he is. They know where he fits. So PJ Washington, definitely. Najee, I think they might just let him play because he is sort of breaking out, as close to a breakout for a guy like he's been around the league for a while now, but he's playing really well. And again, I don't think he's going to impact their overall record. If we leave Najee in there, we're not going to win all these games. So I think Najee Marshall, if I had him, I would just hold him. He's obviously not available, shouldn't be available anywhere. But if you have him on your roster, I wouldn't be panicking like I would be with Flag or one of those guys. So if you have Najee, I would just sit tight.
Yeah, and just, a stat to back up your point that he's not really helping them win games. He's had 3 30-point games in the last 10 appearances, and the Mavs are 1-9 during those games. So yeah, he's not really, his stats aren't really contributing to W's in the column. So I like that. Keep Najee and maybe try to move off of Flag or PJ Washington. All right, Adam, let's get into some of these questions in the chat before we get out of here. Troy Pert says potential players to drop are Justin Champagnie, Nick Clifford, Filipowski, and Melton. Current advice on who to keep and drop when I am forced to. Well, we're not really sure who's available for you, Troy, here. So, Justin Champagnie, Adam just mentioned. I would be trying to hold Nick Clifford and Filipowski and probably Melton at this point. Melton, his workload is questionable with back-to-backs, right? But when he's been out there, he's been pretty productive. Obviously, Steph coming back may hinder his production a little bit. So yeah, Nick and Filipowski are in a category of their own at the top, and then Melton would be tier 2 and Champagnie would be tier 3. Mm-hmm. Is that fair, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. Like I just talked about with Champagnie, I was relatively high on him as a late season guy, but I'm not sure the Wizards are going to roll him out there for 30 plus. So yeah. I think you're okay.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Evelyn says, hold Franz in head-to-head daily lineup leagues. My playoff start 3-5. I have only 2 IL spots held by Watson and Keegan Murray. Okay, yeah. So my initial thoughts would be to drop, but also Keegan Murray, I'm not really sure when he's going to be back. He could be back, this week. I'm leaning towards drop here. Otherwise, I would be, fine putting Franz in your second IL and dropping Keegan. But, like Adam said at the top of the show when we talked about this, Franz is probably not going to be playing in back-to-backs. He's probably not going to be playing a full workload. He's played only 4 games since the beginning of December, so there's going to be some rust, especially if you're not going to just be able to, start your playoffs and then put him in and be expecting first-round production, right? So I would be leaning towards drop, maybe waiting on some Keegan Murray news. How about you, Adam?
I think so, yeah. Keegan is the one that could return the soonest, I think, there. Like you said, could be this week. It could also be a month. He may not return at all. Sacramento. So I'd probably try and hold Keegan if you can. Franz and Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson's due to be reevaluated early March, so pretty much lines up with when your playoffs start. But given the injuries that the Nuggets have had this season, and I think how important he is going to be to their success in the playoffs, I'm not convinced he's back in 4 weeks. I think this could be a 6-week kind of injury, which takes you into the third week of your playoffs. So I think both Watson and Franz are potential drops here. And given that they're long-term injuries, neither player is like we've said, they're not coming back in and playing starter-level minutes and playing back-to-back. So Murray, I would hold. Franz or Peyton Watson, I'd be okay moving on from both of those.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I thought Watson was going to be due back soon, but that was only 2 weeks ago that he got ruled out for 4 weeks. So yeah, Watson's probably the top drop here, and Franz has higher upside than him, so I would probably go in that direction. Matt says, in 18 points head-to-head weekly, I have Cardwell and Gafford. Will probably drop Gafford for Norm Powell. However, should I keep Cardwell or drop to either Jalen Smith, Jarace Walker, Trey Johnson, Musa, or Mark Williams? I would say no, you don't need to keep Cardwell if you have that list of centers. Obviously, that Jalen Smith being healthy is key here. He had the calf injury, sat out the final game before the All-Star. He's missed 3 straight games before the All-Star break. I'm going to say you can probably, or should I keep Cardwell or drop 2 to get either? I would probably drop Cardwell here.
I definitely think dropping Gafford is fine. An 18 points league, he doesn't need to be rostered. And I don't think Cardwell does either. So category leagues, possibly, but points leagues, he's rebounds only, really, and a few blocks here and there. So I'd certainly have someone like a Jalen Smith, Jarace Walker, Mark Williams, I'd probably have over him. Musa, I'm not so sure. I don't think I'd be prioritizing Musa in an 18 points league, but those other names, I think I'd definitely have them over Cardwell.
How would you rank those other names? How would you rank Jalen Smith, Jarace Walker, Trey Johnson?
I think I might have Jarace first. Potentially Jalen Smith. I'm not, because he's out at the moment. That's my hesitation on him. If he was healthy and 100%, I'd probably have Jalen Smith first. But just with the injuries and the fact that he plays for the Bulls, who, as we know, don't have a lot of direction most of the time, and then Nick Richards is there, I'd probably go Walker and then maybe Smith second, Mark Williams, Trey Johnson, Musa.
Okay. I like that. Lots of questions in the chat here. Is Ja Morant a hold? Not really sure when he's coming back. We have him questionable. We have him with minutes, but that'll obviously depend on what these injury reports have coming out of the break. Are you holding your breath on Ja Morant coming back anytime soon, Adam?
I don't have him anywhere, so I'm not in a real life. From a real life perspective, I'm not. Look, I think he probably does come back. How long that lasts, I don't know. He seems to just be in for 2 games and out for 2 weeks, kind of thing. So I think he will come back. So yes, I'm probably holding for now. If it goes a week or 2 weeks and we don't hear anything, or he's very limited, then you could look to move off of him. But I think for now, just until we give the Grizzlies an opportunity to provide some clarity, I'd probably hold.
Yep. I if you've rostered him this far, you probably want to hold him, right? If he's on the cusp of coming back, but I do not have him anywhere. All right, Dylan says Jalen Smith, Trey Johnson, or Brook Lopez 9-cat league. We just talked about Jalen Smith a lot. The injury, if he's healthy, I feel like he's the easy top of this list here. But if he's not healthy, I'm probably going Trey Johnson. I think Brook Lopez is a distant third for me. How about you?
Yeah, I'd have Lopez last, as you said, I think if Jalen Smith was healthy, I'd definitely have him first. Because I think have they provided do they play tomorrow? I don't even know if they've provided an injury update.
The Bulls?
The Bulls, yeah.
The Bulls do play tomorrow.
Probable. Yeah. Okay. Oh, maybe that's not official. Okay. Look, let's go Jalen Smith, Trey Johnson, Brook Lopez.
Yeah. The Bulls have not released their injury report yet.
No.
But they should at some point tonight. So we'll figure that out. Wemby says, in a hard situation I have in my IL, Giddey and Jalen Smith, my drop candidates, Pirtle, Eason, Jerome, Rollins, Diabate, Cardwell, Clifford. Yeah, the Diabate suspension obviously makes this one a little bit difficult. Giddey is coming back. He's practicing. He's expected to play tomorrow. Jalen Smith, we just talked about that a lot. I would say you probably want to drop. Oh, I don't know. It all depends on what you need, right? In a category league, right? Like I want to say Cardwell, but if you're really desperate for blocks, then you don't really want to get rid of him. Clifford could be a little bit of everything. But maybe he's the least trustworthy. I think Ty Jerome and Rollins are safe, even though Ja Morant and Giannis could come back soon. I think their roles are pretty safe. And Pirtle just came back. We're not really sure what he's going to be. What are your thoughts on this one? I'm thrown for a loop here too, Wemby.
I wouldn't drop Rollins. I wouldn't drop Eason. I don't think I'd drop Jerome yet. Clifford, I'm probably holding because I like his upside. I think he's going to have a good opportunity here. It might be Pirtle. For me, I know he's probably the biggest name if we're looking at this just as track record, history, that kind of thing. But this back thing, I think he's going to linger. Murray Boyles will come back at some point. Mamukelashvili has been productive. He's been solid enough this season. So it's not like without Pirtle, they went on this big losing streak and they need him in there to win games. They've still been competitive. They've still been playing well even without him. So it might be Pirtle.
Yeah.
And Diabate, I'm still not convinced Diabate is going to be a rest of season guy. I know he had a good run there, but he is really just an energy guy. And if you think back to guys, someone like a Kenneth Fareed, if we're going way back there, Kenneth Fareed, but he was an energy guy, and he would have periods where he would be a top 50 player for a month, and then he just fades away and does nothing for a month. So I do worry about Diabate, but at the moment I'd hold. Obviously, he's suspended, but definitely not Eason, definitely not Jerome Rollins, Clifford, and I'd probably hold Cardwell. So it's Diabate or Pirtle.
I wanted to let you finish, but Wemby also said PJ is the other drop. He drop candidate. So would you rather have PJ Washington than Pirtle and Diabate?
Yeah, I think I would. For now, like we said, he's probably going to miss some time at some point, but we're not there yet.
I think Pirtle is the drop here. I know he came back and he's the biggest name, like you said, but that's a tough one. He played only 20 minutes. We're not really sure when he's going to be playing full minutes, and 9.6 rebounds. You can find other more productive players off of waivers. Ryan says, what's up, guys? Traded Claxton and Williamson for LeBron. How'd I do? 10 team 8 cat. Well, Claxton is not going to play tomorrow coming out of the All-Star break, so who knows how many games he's going to play. Fire up, Day'Ron Sharpe, fire up Danny Wolf, big names right there with Claxton out. And Williamson, the Pelicans need to win games, but who knows if that's actually in the cards. LeBron, the Lakers need to win. I think I would rather have LeBron than Claxton and Williamson. I'm almost always on the side of get more players, unless unless you're sitting at the top of the standings and you want to win a championship, and one of these guys isn't in your starting lineup, et cetera, et cetera. But in this situation, I don't really trust Claxton at all. So it kind of comes down to LeBron versus Williamson, and I think I'm going to take LeBron. How about you?
I think so. I mean, Zion has been relatively healthy, pretty good this season. So I think I'm not as against Zion as probably I usually am. But the Pelicans, I mean, as you said earlier, the top of the show kind of thing, they don't have their pick. So they don't need to be losing games. They're just not very good. It's hard to know whether they're going to sort of say, okay, Zion, we've seen enough from you this season. Let's just shut you down for the final month. Where LeBron is going to continue to play. So yeah, look, I think this is okay. I think getting LeBron here is fine.
And you want to talk about, maybe potential rest days for LeBron. LeBron has missed only 4 games since November 18th. Obviously missed the start of the season, made his season debut November 18th, is missed only 4 games since then, and all 4 of those were back-to-back sets. So I don't think this is a case where LeBron is playing one, taking a night off. He's full go. He's trying to get this team into the playoffs. ZB says, hey guys, would you rather have Embiid or a Okongwu rest of season 9-cat 12 team head-to-head? I have been trying to trade out Okongwu to build out my team and prep for playoffs, but no luck. I targeted Brunson, Brandon Miller, and Randall. Yeah, so my thoughts on this one, Okongwu is way too productive, and you're just not going to get a player in return that is giving you equal production because, like all of those names you mentioned are bigger names, and managers who, follow the NBA even just somewhat are going to rather stick with the big name than go out and get a guy like Okongwu. Would I rather have Embiid or Okongwu? I've been off Embiid all season, but I cannot deny what he's been doing recently. It's pretty spectacular. So, I think it would be malpractice to say I would rather not have Embiid just because he looks like an MVP recently. What are your thoughts on this one, Adam?
Yeah, much like you, I was I was off Embiid this season, and he has been fantastic. He still looks limited. He's still not the player that he was, but he's good enough to make adjustments and impact games. So, who would I rather rest of season? I'm still going to go Okongwu here. I do think obviously Embiid is the better per minute player, the better if we look at ranks. But Okongwu has no competition for minutes in Atlanta. I know Jock Landale's there, and he had that big game when he first arrived, but Jock Landale is not a starting NBA center, and Okongwu is the Hawks are pushing here. They want to win, so I still think I'd rather go Okongwu. Embiid is questionable tomorrow. He's going to continue to be questionable for the rest of the season, and there's not. It's not going to take a lot for him to miss a week. I think he missed two. Did he miss two games before the? Yeah, so there's still issues there. So I'd go with Okongwu over Embiid.
Yeah, I maybe I'm just trying to self-correct too much because I've been off Embiid all the time, all season, and for the past couple of seasons. My big thing with Embiid is like he misses a front half or a second half of a back-to-back, and basically he has to score 40 points in the other game to get himself back to like regular averages for a normal top 50 guy. Okongwu's been so good, and one of the key reasons why the Hawks were good to start the season. So yeah, I think this one is way closer than it should be, and I'll just play devil's advocate and take Embiid. So one of us is on Embiid after dropping 30-point triple doubles every other game and then sitting out every other. Wemby also was wondering about DeJounte Murray. No real word that he's going to be coming back soon. Return to practice, no real return date set. But he returned to practice recently, so should be on the horizon. Do we think DeJounte turns around the Pelican season, Adam?
No.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would, I don't think he's going to, similar to like a Franz situation, he's not going to come back and be the starting point guard for the Pelicans. I would, I don't even know if Trey Murphy, I don't even know if Zion Williamson, I don't even know if this team is going to, they might take the Utah Jazz approach here shortly. So I'm not super excited about DeJounte, even though he is on the horizon. All right, a couple more questions before we get out of here. Tons of questions in the chat. Really appreciate it. Probably won't be able to get to all of them. You can reach out to me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Sprecher RW, and I'll answer any questions we don't get to here. Matt Carmody says, who do you prefer among Sensabaugh, Traore, Vukcevic, Cardwell, or Devin Carter Yahoo Points League? So a lot of names we've mentioned are already. How are you ranking these guys, Adam?
In a points league, I think I'd have Cardwell towards the bottom in a points league. As I said, he really is just rebounds and blocks, doesn't score a lot. I don't know. Would Sensabaugh be first? He might. I just think he is probably has the highest upside offensively. Like we've seen it. He had a 40 whatever point game earlier in the season. So I might go Sensabaugh first, followed by let's go Traore, maybe. It's hard to know what the Nets are doing. Vukcevic, like I said, if we knew he was going to start and play 30 minutes a night, I might have him first, but I'm not convinced he is yet. So let's go Sensabaugh, Traore, Vukcevic, Carter, Cardwell. All
right, I like that. I am curious also what Traore is going to be the rest of the season. It's kind of an interesting player. I like his dynasty outlook, but I don't know if I trust the Nets to do this consistently every night. And I think Sensabaugh has been there, done that, so I don't mind him being at the top of that list. Another question from Matt. He says, who would you prefer in an ESPN points league, Shaedon Sharpe, Derek Queen, or Jalen Green? This one's real interesting. I think that I want to say Shaedon Sharpe, but that all depends on how healthy he is coming out of the break. I know Drew Holiday is back. Shaedon may not even start, but it doesn't matter what his role is. He can put up stats in a blink of an eye. Jalen Green is really interesting. Colin Gillespie's had a really good season. Grayson Allen has had a really good season when healthy. What is Jalen Green going to be when he gets back in the full swing of things? He could be really interesting. Derek Queen is obviously a lot better in points leagues, but I just don't know if he has the consistent high as consistently high of an upside as Sharp or Jalen Green does. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, my initial reaction was Sharp first because, like you said, he in 25 minutes, he can still give you 25 points and steals, a couple of assists, some rebounds. So probably Sharp, but he has been injured. What's his injury? I feel like
he missed 4 straight games due to a calf injury, which, is it's not good.
No, it's not good. If they're all healthy, I'd go Sharp, Green, Queen. The whole Phoenix. I know Gillespie's been really good, as you said, but I think we've been well. If you've rostered Gillespie, you've been pretty lucky with injuries because it's just been that someone has been out all season. So, look, I might go the order that you've got them there: Sharp, Queen, Green, just because Green is not back to 100% yet. So I'd probably go that order. I think for now.
Yeah, and I think I just Jalen Green could easily be at the top of this list, but he's played in only 7 games. He's played more than 23 minutes. He's played more than 20 minutes only once. Played fewer than 15 minutes twice. So it's just you haven't seen it this year, and that makes it difficult. So I'm fine with swapping Queen or Green, but I do think Sharp needs to be at the top of this list. All right, one more question before we get out of here. Let's get a good one here. Good dynasty question by Daniel. Wave Runner says playoffs start mid-March, 9-cat 12 team. Pick 2 to drop. Ty Jerome, Najee, Oubre, Cardwell, Tari, Jarace, Cardwell, Filipowski, Traore, Keyshawn George. Feel like you've been listening to the show Wave Runner all year because these are a lot of names that we've been mentioning as pickups. And obviously now that you're getting down to the playoffs, it's time to dwindle that roster and get the big guns at the top. I think Cardwell is the first name that really jumps out on this list as a standout. Not because you mentioned him twice, but just because he doesn't have as high of an upside as the rest of these guys. So yeah, I think Cardwell would be my first drop, and then probably Ty Jerome or Traore. And it's just depending on which one. That's a coin flip to me. I think I would trust Ty Jerome a little bit more than Traore, but then also if John Morant comes back, it's probably Traore. How about you, Adam?
Traore, I think, is definitely one of the two that I would go with. As you said, I think Cardwell's an interesting one because if you need rebounds and blocks, there is no way he is a drop. Yeah. Like his upside in those categories is going to make him a top 70 player just because of the fact that blocks are such a low volume category. So yeah, if you don't need rebounds and blocks, absolutely Cardwell is a drop. If you do, then I think Traore and it might be Ty Jerome. I wouldn't be surprised if Keyshawn George is droppable at some point. I don't think we're there yet, but with the way the Wizards are heading, I think they've seen enough from him this season to know that he is going to be a key piece alongside of Anthony Davis, Trae Young next year, Alex Sarr. He'll probably be a starter there. So he could be someone that's droppable. I think his trajectory is it's definitely not up. It's either down or just he's sort of going to stay where he is and miss some time and play limited minutes. Where I think Jarace Walker, Filipowski, Najee, Oubre, these guys, their trajectory is pointed up. I think their minutes are going to hold or go up. So yeah, let's go with Traore, Cardwell maybe, and possibly even Keyshawn.
Yeah, Keyshawn's definitely a guy that is trending towards that list, especially because we have no idea what Washington is going to be. Really appreciate all of the questions, everybody. Sorry to the ones that we didn't get to. Thank you to Sling TV for sponsoring the podcast this week. Quick couple of news notes before we get out of here. Keegan Murray is out on the practice floor for the Kings right now. No word on what his availability is moving forward, but that's obviously a huge positive. DeAndre Hunter is also out practicing. But the big news here is Tyler Hero is expected to return to game action in the coming days for the Miami Heat. So for all of those fantasy managers out there that were wondering about Tyler Hero before the All-Star break, definitely looks like he's gearing up. This Miami Heat team might be a little have a puncher's chance at least, coming into here through the stretch run. And it also sounds like Nick Claxton's injury that I mentioned before wasn't due to what was going on before the All-Star break. He actually sprained his ankle at practice today. He was dealing with a hip injury before the All-Star break, and now it's an ankle injury. So that's definitely Day'Ron Sharpe and Danny Wolf noise if I ever heard it. Thanks, Matt, for throwing that in there in the chat. Thanks again, Adam, for having me on. You said you had a show yesterday. Who was that with?
Yeah, so I did my regular mailbag show with. Normally I do it with Noah Rubin, but he's got a youngster in his house now, so his schedule changes and shifts. So I did it with Thunder Dan yesterday. Yeah, that's a regular show, so it'll be with someone. I will say Jalen Smith is probable for tomorrow as well, so that's a good sign. The Bulls have released their injury report now, so Josh Giddey and Trey Jones both questionable, so nearing a return. But as you said, yeah, with Claxton out, hopefully you've got Day'Ron Sharpe on your roster and/or Danny Wolf.
Absolutely. All right, with that's the end of the Wednesday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Good luck in your fantasy playoffs, everybody. Have a good night.